Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. If you are a Met fan, believe me, I feel your pain. But imagine this. Your New York City deputy mayor for public safety, overseeing the police, fire department, and emergency services. You're a close confidant of the mayor, but scandals are swirling. Federal agents are seizing phones, and your name has been tied to past corruption scandals. Suddenly, you resign. And what do you submit as your official resignation letter? Just 4 words. I resign, effective immediately. Thank you. That's exactly what Philip Banks did last week, and boy, does it speak volumes. Now, let's be clear. This was not just any resignation. There's no graceful exit speech, no flowery language about wanting to spend more time with family or seek new opportunities. No. Banks' resignation letter is so terse, it practically screams, I was pushed out. Banks, who was an unindicted co-conspirator in a corruption scandal years ago, has been a central figure in Mayor Adams' administration since his appointment in 2022. His departure amidst a federal investigation that led to the FBI seizing his phone is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Since Adams was indicted on corruption charges in September, his team has been unraveling at a rate we haven't seen in decades. So what's really going on here? I think there's a good chance Governor Kathy Hochul had something to do with it. Hochul has been vocal about wanting Adams to clean house following this string of federal probes. In fact, sources have indicated that she's been nudging him to get rid of aides tied to scandal, and Banks fits that bill perfectly. But perhaps the most telling part of Banks' resignation is the timing and lack of explanation. Banks didn't just leave quietly. It seems he left angrily. His brother David Banks and sister-in-law have also been caught up in their own controversies, which could be adding to the familial strain. It's hard to believe that Philip Banks just woke up one morning and decided to go quietly into the night. The brevity of his resignation letter might as well have said, not by choice, in invisible ink. Mayor Adams, now under pressure from Governor Hochul, had no choice but to act. Enter Chauncey Parker, the new deputy mayor for public safety. Adams, always trying to project confidence, claims that this bench of his is quite deep. But let's be real. When your deputy mayor leaves with a letter that looks more like a Post-it note or a hostage letter, it's not exactly a sign of a smooth, voluntary transition.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. It's not every day you see the mayor of a major city resign to run a gambling enterprise, but that's exactly what happened in Buffalo this week. Byron Brown, the city's longest-serving mayor and a political trailblazer as Buffalo's first black mayor, officially stepped down to take the reins at Western Regional Off-Track Betting. And yes, you heard that right. The mayor of New York's second largest city is trading in the responsibilities of governance for the world of horse racing and gambling. Brown, who made history in 2021 by becoming the first mayor in Buffalo's history to win re-election through a write-in campaign, is leaving behind a city that faces a $10 to $15 million budget deficit. His move to OTB is raising a few eyebrows, both for the timing and for the message it sends. I mean, couldn't he have finished his term, which still had a year or two left? What would have been the harm in waiting? Byron Brown's explanation for his departure is deeply personal. He wants to spend, you guessed it, you didn't need me to tell you, more time with his family, particularly his young grandniece and grandnephew, whom he and his wife are helping to raise. Apparently, he had no idea that he had a family when he asked to be reelected 3 years ago. In his farewell speech, Brown shared that back in 2004, he quietly battled prostate cancer, an ordeal only a handful of people knew about. It's clear that family has been a driving force for him, especially after reflecting on the moments he missed with his own son due to the demands of public office. But there's something undeniably curious about Brown's swift departure. His new role at OTB will pay him nearly $300,000 a year. But let's be honest, that's not a figure that usually makes a dedicated public servant abandon mid-ship. And in a city where a budget shortfall is looming, some might view this as a bit of a betrayal. After all, Brown committed to serving his constituents for 4 more years. When they wrote his name in on the ballot in 2021, that's exactly what he said he was going to do. Now, they're left with acting mayor Chris Scanlon, who has some big shoes to fill as he tries to balance the city's books. It's not that Brown doesn't deserve a new chapter. After nearly 20 years in office, he's more than earned the right to move on. But the optics are strange. Leaving the helm of Buffalo to jump into the world of off-track betting, it feels a bit like turning in your mayoral robes for a slot machine lever.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Here we are, the final proposition on the ballot that we have yet to talk about. Proposition 6, one of the ballot proposals in this year's New York City election, has some pretty mixed opinions swirling around it. Let's break down what it's all about and why I'm ultimately opposed to it. At its core, Proposition 6 proposes a few things. The main highlight is creating a new position, the Chief Business Diversity Officer, whose role would be to support minority and women-owned business enterprises, MWBEs. It also suggests letting the mayor designate which office handles film permits and proposes combining 2 archive boards that manage city records into one. But really, the spotlight is on the CBDO, the Chief Business Diversity Officer role, and the debate around whether it's needed. Those in favor argue that establishing a Chief Business Diversity Officer could enhance the support system for MWBEs, making sure they have more opportunities to thrive. Advocates say this officer would create a more centralized and focused effort to help minority and women-owned businesses grow in the city. Sounds nice, right? But there's a lot of pushback, and that's where I come in. 9 public comments came in to the Campaign Finance Board and the voter guide against this proposition, and for good reason. One of the biggest critiques is that Proposition 6 lumps together unrelated issues. Why are we talking about film permits and archive boards in the same breath as MWBE support? It feels like the kind of bureaucratic mishmash that New York City really doesn't need more of. Even more concerning is the idea that the role of a Chief Business Diversity Officer is redundant. New York City already does a lot to promote MWBEs with programs in place to ensure they have access to city contracts and other opportunities? Do we really need to create a whole new office just to do something that's already being done? I'd argue no. Creating a new position like this just adds another layer of government when what we really need is to streamline processes, not pile on more. If this passes, it would enshrine the CBDO into the city's charter, which means it's not something we could easily undo if it turns out to be ineffective. And that's a concern. What if it just adds to the city's already bloated bureaucracy? In my view, I think that's what it would do. In my view, this isn't a necessary change. The city already has plenty of support mechanisms in place for minority and women-owned businesses. If those need improvement, let's focus on tweaking existing structures rather than creating new ones. And throwing unrelated issues like film permits into the mix just muddies the water. I'm voting no.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
The Suffolk County District Attorney's Office is running out of funds as it continues its prosecution of one of the most infamous serial killer cases in decades. And it's a case that we've been following from the very beginning, the Gilgo Beach murders. DA Ray Tierney is pleading with the federal government to release $13 million in frozen funds, money his office desperately needs to keep the case against Rex Heuermann moving forward. Heuermann is a Massapequa Park architect and is accused of killing 6 women, I believe it's a lot more, whose bodies were discovered along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway over the past 3 decades. It's a case that has haunted Long Island, and now it's at risk of hitting a financial wall. Court-imposed deadlines require Tierney's office to provide mountains of evidence to the defense, and that's where the money crunch hits hardest. Here's where it gets complicated. The $13 million in question was frozen by the Department of Justice in 2020 during an unrelated investigation into the DA's office under Tierney's predecessor, who was not a very good DA. Although Tierney took office after the fact, his office is still blocked from accessing the funds, creating what he calls a serious budgetary issue. Tierney expressed his frustration at the situation, saying,
we're begging, let us use those millions of dollars, again, to alleviate the burden on our taxpayers, the burden on my budget. The Department of Justice controls our forfeiture, and I'm sure they're thrilled about me talking about it, but it's the fact. And they've chosen to freeze all of our money.
Without those funds, the prosecution's ability to manage the large volumes of evidence and meet tight legal deadlines is in jeopardy. And if Tierney doesn't get that money soon, the case could face delays or even be compromised. This situation raises broader concerns about how frozen funds can hamper justice when millions of dollars tied up in unrelated matters prevent prosecutors from doing their jobs. It creates a dangerous precedent. The public wants justice for the victims, and Tierney's office needs the resources to pursue it. The next move is in the hands of the federal government. Let's hope the DOJ acts quickly before the pursuit of justice for these long-forgotten victims is derailed by bureaucracy.
Beam me up!
To be continued.